Sitting there and keeps my dad is in the military.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Lindsay Dubeldice. I am the Associate Director of Admissions and Awards here at the George Washington University's Columbian College of Arts and Sciences. And let me say on behalf of our faculty, staff, and students, welcome and congratulations on your acceptance to one of our amazing graduate programs. We are really excited and thankful that you took time out of your schedule to join us in the middle of the week to learn a little bit more about your potential experience here as a graduate student. I know many of you probably traveled considerable distances or what felt like a very considerable distance in the amazing Wednesday DC area traffic. And I know you all worked really hard to get to this point, so I hope you feel really proud of yourselves. Before we get started with our student panel, I wanted to take a brief moment just to give you an overview of what to expect for the day and instructions on how to navigate past this first event. As you probably know by now, the agenda is available via QR code, so you can either scan that at the check-in table or outside the doors. There should also be a copy of the QR code so you can nab a copy of that session on or schedule on your way out of this session. And then after this session ends, you're going to have 30 minutes to visit the Student Services and Housing Fair in room 309, and that's just going to be out this door to my left, your right, and down the hallway. There you're going to be able to chat one-on-one with representatives from GW support offices on campus, learn about different resources that are available to you. And additionally, you're going to be able to meet with some local housing and apartment communities to help you start thinking about housing options in the DC area. And that fair is going to be open from 11:15 to 12:30 p.m. And again, that's in room 309 at the end of the hallway in the right corner. The next session after the Student Services Fair is going to start at 11:45, and you can either choose to join our faculty panel, which will be right here in this same room. There will also be a session on navigating DC, living and thriving in the nation's capital. Again, the faculty panel is located here. The Living and Thriving in DC is going to be located again right down this hallway in room 307. You can find the description of each of those sessions on the agenda. As a third option, if you prefer to spend more time at the Student Services and Housing Fair, you're welcome to stay there. At 12:30, we're going to have lunch in the Continental Ballroom, which is the ballroom directly next to this amphitheater. And that's going to be located behind the check-in desk. At lunch, you're going to be joined by a faculty member from your program, so it's a great chance to ask specific questions that you might have in mind about your personal journey. During lunch, as we near the end of the program, we're going to ask that you take our event survey, and you'll be able to complete that right from your seat on your mobile device by, again, scanning another QR code. And if you complete that survey on the way out, you'll be able to pick up a thank you gift in the lobby from one of our staff members. As you go through the day, if you have any questions, look for us in the gold name tags, and we'll be able to help you. And then otherwise, we're going to go ahead and get started with our presentation. And just a quick couple of housekeeping notes. This session is being live streamed, so we're going to be taking questions both from you, our live audience, as well as from you, our audience attending online. If you have questions for any of our panelists, we'll have a couple of warm-ups to get you all started. Please step up to the front and form a line against the wall, and Zach here will be able to pass you the microphone. If you're unable to get out of your seat or uncomfortable getting out of your seat, please just raise your hand and we'll have Mallory run a mic to you as well. Awesome. So to get us started, we have 4 of our current graduate students here to talk to you a little bit more about their journey. And so to get us started, I'm just going to ask each of them to introduce themselves, tell us what program they're in, and how long they've been studying at GW.
Okay, so can you guys hear me? Okay. I'm Alexandra Monan. This is my second semester. I'll be done next December. I'm in the Forensic Psychology Master's Program, which is actually on the Alexandria campus. So if you have any questions about like the different campuses, I'm a girl. And I am originally from Michigan, so I am new to the area as well.
Hi guys, My name's Ezzy Omeniki. I'm in my final semester studying media and strategic communications in the School of Media and Public Affairs. So this weekend I'm going to be going and taking my graduation photo shoot like with the cherry blossoms down near the monuments, so that's really cool. I moved here from LA. I went to University of Southern California, Fight On, if we have anybody out there. And yeah, I would just love to talk about like living in DC and anything that has to do with SMPA. I got you covered.
Hi everyone, I'm Naïs Pierre. I'm actually an international student, so I'm from Port-au-Prince, Haiti. So if you have any questions about being an international student and coming to GW, I can answer all those questions. I'm currently in the Applied Econ program and I'll be graduating this May.
Hi everyone, I'm Carrie. I'm in my second year last semester of the data science program. I'm originally from San Francisco, California, and I did my undergrad at the University of Michigan. Go Blue, if anyone went to Michigan.
Thank you, everyone. So to kind of kick us off, can we just talk a little bit about what made you originally decide to attend GW? You've all come from considerable distances, so none of you are local. What made you come on over to DC and decide to pick GW?
I can go first. It was my Hillturnship that summer that I had when I worked on the Hill. I just fell in love with living in DC. And I've always been really passionate about politics, international affairs, and just I feel like this is the city where that stuff happens, and I was completely not wrong at all. So I just knew that I wanted to get myself here in this city and just go from there, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. So I kind of fell in love with the city first, and then I fell in love with GW's program. It was the only program that I applied to as a master's, and it's the only one that was like really created for me, so yeah.
I think for me it was kind of the opposite. I fell in love with the GW Applied Econ program first. I applied to a lot of other econ programs, but specifically the GW one, the fact that it was in DC, we're right next to the World Bank, the IMF, and that made it so that like I have a project that I'm doing with the World Bank right now, and I'm working for the IMF, so like I was able to get everything I wanted out of the experience. And on top of that, because it's an applied program, all of our professors are actually working. So everything we learn in class is everything they do in their day-to-day job, which I found very different from my undergrad program, and I love that. And then my mom was living here, and my sister was moving here too for grad school, so it just was kind of perfect for me. But DC's an amazing city, so it just, once I got here and I visited and everything, it just sealed it. I was like, this is it, this is the one.
So I'm gonna echo. I was also looking to go to school in a major city. I felt like for grad school that was extremely important, especially for the field that I was in. I'm also gonna be honest, GW did give me money, and that was a big contributing factor to choosing the school. But I also really liked how GW seems to really value their students. A lot of the other programs I applied to was like virtual classes, or you're just going to be another face in a program. And here I really felt like they actually cared, that they wanted you in the classroom, they wanted you learning, and they wanted you to do projects and like seek out your interests, and that really called to me, and ultimately how I ended up here.
And then I'm gonna go off that a little. I, to be honest with you, didn't know that I was gonna come here until I was sitting in your place. I decided to come to Admitted Students Day. Last year I was sitting in your same exact seats, and I just honestly, I was gonna go somewhere else until I was sitting there. I thought that Chicago was for me, and that's where I was gonna end up. But being here and seeing how much the students actually cared, and how much the faculty, and lunch will be a great time to get to know your faculty in your program, and how much they actually care. Like you said, it really made me feel valued and made me feel like I was wanted here, as opposed to other schools that I went to and toured. They made me feel like they were trying to sell it to me, and it wasn't as genuine.
For your candid answers. And as a reminder, if anyone in the audience has questions, feel free to raise your hand or head over to Zach. Adrian, do we have any questions online? Yeah. Alrighty, awesome. Well, we'll just keep trucking along then. Can you talk to us a little bit about the difference that you've experienced between being an undergraduate student and a graduate student? whether you came directly out of undergrad or you worked for a couple of years. Can you just talk a little bit about sort of what that difference feels like?
I can go first.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a very unique background because I went to a military service academy and then I served in Haiti for 2 years afterwards. So it's a lot different just because being in the military and being at a service academy, it's like very structured, very you have a schedule that you have to follow, whereas grad school is very much you're doing your own thing. No one's doing the same thing as you because we're all kind of in different phases of our lives. There are people in my program who have children, married, all the things, whereas there's some that are just coming straight from undergrad, which I know you are. And so it's just very different. You get to talk to a lot of different people from different backgrounds and who are experiencing different things in life, which is nice because you get a very unique perspective from every person in your program. And then, yeah, I think also the fact that everything I'm learning is so applied now and it's very much gonna be in line with what I wanna do after I graduate. It's just very different from undergrad.
Yeah, and I graduated undergrad early and came straight from undergrad. So if anyone has any questions about that, I think it is definitely a big adjustment because undergrad, you're in classes multiple times a week. In grad school, you have that class once a week. So it is all self-discipline. So definitely, I would say get your ducks in a row before coming here. But honestly, I didn't. I didn't have my ducks in a row before coming here. And the first couple weeks, it was a big adjustment, but you guys can all do it. You got it in the program, you're smart people. Yes, it's a big adjustment, but you can do it, and it's fun.
Yeah, I came right from undergrad and wanted to postpone adulthood as long as possible. And obviously any transition, I bet as freshmen in undergrad and whatnot, it's gonna be hard. I know when I got here, I thought I would have figured out, it'd be great. But there are definitely some hills you have to get over. The transition isn't gonna be totally smooth. You're gonna have to figure things out. But ultimately, it's what you make it in grad school. I now look back at undergrad and feel like I was very coddled, even though, in high school they say, oh, teachers are not gonna care, blah, blah, blah. In undergrad, you're definitely coddled. Here, you kind of have to figure things out for yourself and really go out and get what you want and don't be afraid to do that. Even if you feel oh, I don't know enough, I'm too young, whatever it is, you are worthy of what you want in life and you really just have to go out and get it. And GW, I feel is a very good place to let that happen.
Yeah, and I feel every program's different. I absolutely love my classes. I love my program. I mean, I really like working with my faculty and professors. So any opportunity I can to spend time outside of the classroom with my peers or my faculty, I really do take the opportunity. Just an example is what my favorite professor, he was giving a speech in the Finnish embassy and he just invited me. I went there, there was 3 students and all these delegates. Those are types of situations we say only at GW, seriously only at GW. So it's very important to take advantage of your class time and just know that it's temporary, but these connections you make can really leverage later and just explore, it's very important and lucky, it's lucky, like you said, as well, everybody in your class is doing different things, is in different careers, different parts of life. So it's very special to be able to use them as resources to build your own intellect and resume and stuff like that.
And welcome to those who just joined us. We do have a bunch of seats in the front, so if you're not too shy to come down to the front. We also have Zach over here with the mic, so if anyone in the audience has questions, please feel free to pop one over there. So I think one thing that really struck me is that none of you all are local. Talk to me about that transition from your hometown, your home country, and moving to a brand new city that can be kind of complicated, I think, and not complicated, intimidating for some folks to kind of move to the DC area. Can you talk a little bit about that transition and kind of how you manage that?
I can start. So my friends and I have a joke that I'm slowly moving across the country and back around. I now have like lived in a lot of different parts of the country, and DC, I love it. I think that the metro is great. There's so many free things to do. There's so many young people here. There's so many people from all different walks of life. There's just so much to experience in DC that I don't think I would have gone if I went anywhere else. I was thinking New York City, I was like, that's gonna eat me alive. I was thinking Boston, I was like, that's not for me. DC, I feel like is the perfect balance of everything. You don't feel too claustrophobic, but you also have so many opportunities, and you have, Arlington right over the water, which has a lot of different companies and whatnot. You truly can't get certain experiences in other cities like you do in DC. And I say that wholeheartedly, coming from all these other great places that I thought were the best in the world. But I really have come to love DC so much.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love DC. I'm actually going to be moving, which I'm so sad about because I've fallen in love with this city. Coming from Haiti, it was a little bit different, but I had already moved for undergrad to the US and then moved back home and I moved here. So it wasn't as challenging as it probably is for someone who's moving to the US for the first time and has never really visited. But I will say the program has such a large, especially my program and GW as a whole, has such a large international community that you will find someone who is from your country, a group of people who are from your country, or just other international students, other American students that you really get along with. I get along with everyone in my program. Like you said, the other day I went and had bachelor watch nights with someone from my program who graduated in December. And we just I don't know, there's something about the fact that we're in the middle of the city. There's so many things to do. After class, you can just be hey guys, do you want to go get drinks? And that kind of makes you feel at home because it makes you feel like you have people you can go to who can really support you and are there for you and can help you when you need help. And I love that.
I'd say the adjustment. I grew up in Florida and then went to school in California. I'm not gonna lie, that was very hard to experience a winter like that last year for me. I really did get down in the dumps a little bit, but this year's been amazing and I really like it now. The weather is definitely an adjustment. I'm sure from Haiti, that was difficult too, not being near the water. But I think, like you said, everybody's here for a reason. Most people, aren't in the middle of DC. You don't just live in Foggy Bottom, sometimes. If you're lucky enough, you can. But most people are here for a reason, whether that's work or career or anything. And it's really nice to connect over everybody, usually being a transplant around you. I'd say, the city is amazing. It's a different adjustment because it's not just a city, it's the capital, it's a district, so the culture is very different. I think it was a culture shock for me. I think in LA it's very laid back. I'm used to flip-flops, I'm used to, tank tops. But my style's definitely changed and I've changed, but I think I've definitely elevated and it's allowed me to grow into a different type of adult that I'm really proud of right now. So I think it's a good adjustment.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna echo the winters. I'm from Michigan, so it's really cold there. So moving here was great. There's no depression winters that I had to go through, none of that. So obviously it's a little colder than I'm sure some places that you guys are used to, but that was a great thing. And then another great thing is obviously everybody went to undergrad, whether you thrived in high school, undergrad, whatever it is, there's always those people. We each know, every single one of us, we know those people that they went to undergrad to party. And some of us love those people. Maybe we were those people. But I also think that grad school, you're gonna have a select few, but everyone is trying to get a higher education. And so you're gonna meet those people that you might go get a drink with, but in the end, you're all prioritizing the same thing. You're trying to get somewhere in your career, you're trying to network. And so having the balance of both is a lot better, in my opinion, than undergrad.
Thank you. So let's check in with our live stream folks. Do we have any questions?
Yes, we do have a few questions.
Awesome.
A couple of people are asking about the safety on campus and in the city, especially being an international student.
I actually live on campus. I have like a special situation. And I do know that GW has a very, I don't want to like make it sound bad, but like we have a very high presence of campus police activity. It is extremely safe for me to walk around like campus. I really don't feel like I can talk too much about like the city as DC as a whole, but Foggy Bottom, I mean, the next neighborhood over is Georgetown and then the water, but it's very safe. I would honestly say that.
I agree. I feel like, I mean, no matter where you go, like what city you go to, there will always be like something happening. It's not like, oh, there's never any police activity or anything. Like, it happens, and we get the texts and we get the emails, and they tell us what to avoid and what's going on. So if you want to stay informed, like you always have that option to just know what's happening on campus and like get news alerts and stuff like that. But it is very safe. Like anytime you need help, it is very easy for you to find help if you need it. And like she said, we're in Foggy Bottom. It's a safe area around DC. Majority of areas in DC are pretty safe. The metro is very safe. Like I take it all the time late at night. So it's a generally safe area. But I mean, obviously you want to be careful, but it is safe.
Yeah, I would say, like we all know, crime doesn't have a zip code. So no matter where you go, there's gonna be things happening. Definitely be aware of your surroundings, but I live in Alexandria, and I actually worked for a police department in undergrad. I see more police in Alexandria here than I did working at the police department. So I definitely think that, yes, be aware of your surroundings, but it is, if you're safe, if you're smart, you're gonna be just fine.
Yeah, just to echo everyone else, I feel extremely safe walking around. Like, I walked home last night by myself at like 10:30, and just keep, your awareness, but I feel extremely safe in this city, especially in these neighborhoods. Yeah, I don't think I can add anything else.
Do you guys utilize like the GW apps? Like they have like the PAL app and the different alerts and systems and stuff?
So one of our apps that me and my friends utilize is called Safe Ride, and basically like around campus, if you need to like call a car to take you home or anywhere, like if I use it like if it's too cold and I'm at my friend's house that's kind of far away, like you can just call. It's like an Uber and it's free, and they come and pick you up and take you back to your house, which is really nice.
Yeah, Safe Ride is awesome. Like, you think that you, like, I don't know, I always feel like, oh, I don't actually, like, oh, I can walk, blah, blah. But they want you to use it. It's there for a reason, and, like, usually they're there in, like, 1 second. So, like, if I was at the library studying, they pull up, like, within a few minutes of calling it. The thing to know, though, is that it only goes, like, a certain radius in the neighborhood. So I think it stops up on, like, N or something. That's just something to keep in mind, but it's so great.
I'm gonna go to our question right over here, and then I see a couple of other hands raised, so we'll go.
Hey, so my name is Steele. My question is, do you have any advice for finding roommates and housing? Specifically, I'm a forensic psych. I'm doing forensic psych, and not a lot of people are in Alexandria compared to DC. So how did you find roommates?
Yes, so there's a GW housing website, saved my life. I knew no one coming here. One of my roommates is in the forensic psych, and then the other one is in art therapy, which is also on the Alexandria campus. So if you go to the website, and I can show you too after this panel, you can like create a profile once you have your GW ID, and you can make a little bio and like put a picture and just kind of find like-minded people that like to do things around your age if you're looking for a certain gender, anything like that. And that is how I found both of them. Loved them to death, could not have worked out better. Obviously that's not always gonna work out, but I definitely recommend doing that.
Yeah, I think Facebook also, I know like there's tons of Facebook groups. There's a lot of, it's a mix between like Georgetown and GW and American students that like live in this area. And so, and there's also apartment buildings that aren't with the campus, but like there's so many students that live there. They're usually like posting, and like you can go to like the website of these apartments, and they're usually posting like, oh, looking for a subleaser, or like looking for a roommate. And I also would be aware that there's some apartments here that only take grad students, only take like certain requirements, I think, but that's something to keep in mind as well.
The Navigating DC session will also have a lot more information on that if you're able to attend. Yes. I see a hand in the back. Adrian, could you pass that mic?
Hello, my name is Jay, and I know you said that the experience with scheduling was a lot different from undergrad, so I was hoping you guys could share like what your day-to-day schedule is like.
I can't speak for every major. I mean, every major is very different. So I know you guys definitely have different schedules. But for me, my entire program, I've only had 3 days of class, and those classes only go from 6 till 8. Right now, I only have 2 classes, and yeah, it's really nice. It's very manageable. Everybody except, I mean, this is my job, but like everybody in my class usually has like a full-time job. My major is catered towards working professionals so that you can do both, and it's very manageable.
Yeah, I was very confused when I only like saw available night classes, and I was talking to like people in the public health, like gender studies. That's like the common thing at GW. I didn't realize that. It's so people can, have jobs or do other things during the day. I did have classes that were like at noon, or if you work as like a TA, you would be on the undergrad schedule, which is like during the day. Currently, I only have a Monday class because I'm in my capstone/thesis, but there's usually no Friday classes, and the classes are usually like 2 hours and 40 minutes, which is definitely a lot, but it's only once a week, so it's manageable.
I also only have night classes, so usually I'll just like work in the mornings from like 8 to 12, and then, because I only work part-time, and then I'll just study and then go to class in the evenings. Classes end at like 8:40, so I would say don't live too far, because if you're gonna live like an hour away and all your classes are in the evening, it can get hard. So yeah, but yeah.
My situation's a little bit different, so it depends on your program, but we have the option to take a 6 to 8 class. My classes are 2 hours long. Again, I'm in forensic psych. But all of my classes right now, there's no Friday classes ever. And all of my classes are usually in the morning. Like I have a 10 to noon right now. I have a 12 to 2, and then I have one 6 to 8. And then in the summer, if you do take summer courses, and sometimes in the fall and spring, they do have weekend classes, which sounds horrible, but it's not. If you take a weekend class, it's like you meet 3 different times. Everything else is asynchronous, super nice. But yeah, it definitely is different than undergrad, to go back to your question, but I think scheduling is a lot more manageable, just because the classes are only once a week. And so like I have a part-time job and an externship or practicum, and I have classes. So it's definitely super manageable. I know I'm 12 credits full-time. I don't know if that's what you guys are too. But yeah, it's super manageable.
And I would say, like, don't try to focus on matching anyone else's schedule. Just really know, like, when your most productive hours are, and, like, schedule around that. So schedule yourself. Don't try to, like, follow what anyone else tells you.
I think you made some great points about there's definitely a lot of programs that are focused and available for students who want to work full-time or are designed around that. But then also some of our clinical programs or more intensive studio arts programs, those are going to be more full-time programs. So that's definitely something that's great to kind of chat with your faculty about, to kind of get an idea of when most of their classes are offered. I want to go back to our online audience. Do we have any additional questions, Adrian?
Well, you all kind of talking about it. A lot of people were asking how you were funding your studies and about opportunities for international students.
And can you explain more about the studies part? Like, is it just like how we study, or is it?
You just said how we're funding your studies. So.
Oh, how we're funding our studies. Okay, yeah. So I also got some funding from GW, so that helped me. And then my parents are supporting me just because, like, I'm an international student, and I saved because I was working for 2 years before, so I saved to like pay for living expenses and stuff like that. But I also work, so it's a combination of a lot of different things. And then opportunities, there are a lot of opportunities for funding for international students. It just takes a lot of research and like just asking. So I would definitely say it's going to depend a lot on your situation, especially as an international student. It's just very case by case. So there's no like one size fits all advice that I could give for that. But yeah, if you like need help or need someone to help point you in a specific direction or get you to like someone who can answer your questions better, just let me know.
Anyone else want to, even though you're not an international student, do you want to mention about any resources that you found helpful?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of on-campus jobs. Like I know a lot of people work at the library, they work at the student union. I personally just work at like a cafe off campus. There's like a lot of like different like minimum wage jobs around too. And another thing that helped me a lot was getting a teaching assistant position. That was about $1,000 a month, I think. And it is like 20 hours. But it is really great. I think it's like the best thing I could have done because it was like fit into my schedule. And I just think that GW does have a lot of on-campus jobs for students. I know there's like some sort of I think rules that people have to work on campus for certain scholarships and whatnot, but there are a lot of options.
Our Office of Graduate Assistantships and Fellowships, they are a great resource. They have an awesome tool where you can kind of filter down by your program, by your level, and then graduate assistantships are available in most departments. Something that's a little bit different, I think, about GW is that most of our programs, some do, but most do not offer grad assistantships at the time of admission. And that's because a lot of our students do work in the city. So they offer them kind of once the semester starts, you can sign up to be considered for one of those positions, and then you can end up with one of those for a future semester.
And I might share just a little because I never know who's like sitting in the audience, but I'm a student athlete and that's one of my ways of funding myself. So I don't know if we have any like grad student athletes out there, but that's been a really major help for me, and it's an avenue as well, so yeah.
Adrian, again, any other online?
Can you talk about the housing, cost of living in the DC area?
Cost of living. That's a fun question. So do you want to talk about where you found housing? And you do not need to list your rent. Put that on blast. But feel free to talk in generalities.
Yeah, so I got really lucky actually just because I moved into the same building that my mom was living in. Like I just lived down the hall. So it was really easy to find a place, and it's an older building, which is very helpful in DC because they're usually not as expensive but still in good areas. So if you don't mind like not having a gym in your building and all those things and just like having a place to live, but you're in the middle of the city and like can walk to class and all of that, then I would suggest finding an older building in a good area for you. Cost of living is pretty high in DC. I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot, but I don't know. I like to do a lot of things, so I'm always like going to dinner and doing all these things, and that definitely like is why I spend a lot more than I probably have to. So there's definitely ways to save in DC. I know GW has like the GW pantry or something where you can get like, I don't know, I usually just go for tuna because I like tuna sandwiches. So yeah, like there are a lot of options for students, but it's definitely high, and working and stuff like that definitely helps. That's how I like pay for, I don't know, going to dinner and like all the things that I like to do. It's from working, and then like all my savings are to like my rent and all the other things.
I would definitely say it was a shock. Coming from Michigan, rent was a lot lower, and so that was one of the things that I was like, I don't know if I can afford to live here, but you'll make it work if you want to live here. To me, it's completely worth it. Having roommates was a big help because living on your own is very expensive anywhere. But definitely finding like-minded people that you're on the same page with, definitely finding roommates saves money.
And like another resource that's like really helped me save money is like our UPass in the metro system.
Yes.
I mean, if you need to have a car or if you're living, like that's great, but I think I've saved a lot of money not traveling or using my car or having anything like that. I lived in LA before, which was very expensive as well. I would say they're pretty comparable. And I think especially in grad school though, now this is my last semester, I've adjusted my spending towards that of a grad student. It's very easy to want to have fun every weekend, but you get that out of your system, I feel like, hopefully, and then you just, you make it work.
Yeah, there's a lot of, people pretty much said everything I could think of, but a lot of stuff in DC is free. So social things,
That's true.
there are so many free things to do. It's I was appalled by how many free things are. So you can make it work. It definitely is doable.
Another thing that I don't think a lot of people talk about as a Marylander is our proximity. You don't have to live in downtown DC. A lot of people want to, and that is awesome, and there's a ton of options, but if you're looking for housing that's a little bit less expensive, or maybe you like a little more space or want to live by yourself and don't necessarily want to live with roommates, there are parts of Northern Virginia that are closer to campus than parts of DC. Yeah. So right over the river is Northern Virginia. As you get out into some of the suburbs, the prices do go down. Maryland is also very easily accessible via metro, and you can also find some additional savings there. So there's definitely options if you don't have your heart set on the DC core, but you can totally make the DC core work.
Yeah, and just going off that, I actually live in Virginia. I live in Alexandria. I took the metro here this morning. Takes me about 25 minutes. It's not too bad. And I, like you said, chose it because I want a big closet. I have a lot of clothes. And so I needed that space, and I didn't want to buy a 2-bedroom apartment for my closet being one of the rooms. And so that's kind of why I chose to live in Alexandria, because there is a lot more space if you live outside of DC.
But no, the UPass is a lifesaver. DC has great public transportation. It doesn't come as often as the New York subway, but it comes often enough that it's not that big a deal. And so if you're looking for apartments outside of DC, just go to each metro stop and then look a walking distance from that metro stop and just keep going as far out as you're willing to spend on the metro, and you'll find decent places.
All right, so we've probably got time for about one more question. I thought I saw a hand in the audience, but yes, can we run a mic up to you?
Also, before I forget, the UPass is $100 per semester for unlimited rides on the metro. It's so worth the money you need to get it.
It's so worth it.
I just kind of wanted to ask about the graduate assistantships that you were asking, or that you were talking about before. How do you find, you mentioned an office, but how do you find out about those things? Maybe a little bit more information on the timeline. What are the resources to kind of find some of those on-campus jobs and assistantships?
Have any of you TA'd? Do you want to talk a little bit about how you found that opportunity?
Yeah, so for me personally, my department sends out basically an application. You have to submit your resume and stuff. Because I think it's an internal thing in the department, and then the professors choose you and whatnot. So at the beginning of, or towards when you're choosing class for the next semester, they'll send out, hey, we're looking for people for assistantships next semester. You're not going to be promised to get one, but submit your resume anyways. And I was chosen for an undergrad class for a professor I'd taken, but a lot of the times you'll actually be doing it for other grad classes. I know that data science has a lot of classes, so I was doing primarily data science. I was also doing a statistics class, but I have a friend in gender studies, and she was doing assistantship for history and things like that. So really, based on your resume is where you'll get placed and chosen by professors.
Yeah, for the econ program, it's like you said, they just send it out and they ask you for your resume, and then there are just different options. And a lot of times, if you develop a relationship with a professor and they have a class that they want you to be a TA for, they'll offer you. So I have a friend who worked on a food program class. It was about food insecurity and stuff like that. So there are a lot of options for that. In terms of finding other jobs on campus, there's like a specific website, the GW, I forget the exact website, but there's a website, and you would just filter out the ones that are for federal work study students, and there are just a bunch of options for jobs. I got my job on there. I specifically looked for like hybrid, mostly remote, like a position, and I got one. I've had it the whole time that I've been here, so I've had it for 2 years, and it's perfect.
And like I did the same in my timeline on that. Like I had that job weeks before I even like stepped foot on campus. Like I definitely recommend looking for that in like August. If you know that's something that you need or want, like you can definitely apply.
If you go to the general GW Career Services page, the link for student jobs is there. I will say, if you are not in one of those programs where they offer assistantships as part of admission, typically you'll be able to start applying for those during your first semester to start as a second semester TA. But that actually really wraps us into a great conversation about your next session, which will be the Student Services and Housing Fair, which is going on in room 310. So there'll be some staff that'll be available to answer some of those questions as well. I really want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today, and thank you. Can we get a round of applause for our panel? Thank you to everyone who's joined us online. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and if I don't see you back here for the faculty panel, I will see you all at lunch. So thank you all. Guys, that was awesome. right, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I hope you all enjoyed your first session as well as the Housing and Student Services Fair. Again, thank you all for taking the time to join us today. For those of you who were not in the Student Life panel, my name is Lindsay Dubeldice. I am the Senior Associate Director of Admissions and Awards here at GW's Columbian College of Arts and Sciences. And I do want to welcome you all to campus again. And thank you for joining us for this amazing faculty panel. We have 4 of our esteemed faculty members here to talk to you a little bit more about what you can expect as students, either in their program or as a graduate student at GW in general. Just a couple of quick housekeeping notes as we have some folks coming in. I want to welcome our live stream audience as well as our in-house audience. You'll have a chance to ask questions. What I'll do for the in-house audience, if you have questions that you want to ask to any of our panelists, I'll ask that you walk over and visit Nicole over here. She will pass you the mic to be able to answer any of your questions. If for any reason you're unable to get up from your seat and come down to the front, you are also welcome to just raise your hand and we'll have someone bring a mic to you. But if you're able to, we'd love for you to go over and visit Nicole. And then for those of you on the live stream, please feel free to type your questions in and I'll be alerted when we have some online questions that we can answer as well. So to get us started, I'm going to have our faculty introduce themselves and tell us just a little bit about your background and how long you've been with GW. So to get us started, Lauren, could we have you start?
Hi, I'm Lauren Ingram. I joined GW in 1996. I've had a first part of my career was at the National Institute of Mental Health. I'm a clinical psychologist and I direct the professional psychology program. So I've been here 20-some years and I've been very happy to be at GW. And just as a short word about one of the impressive things about GW is that as a university, I don't just spend time talking to my colleagues in psychology. There are a Department of Philosophy that's very interested in mental health. There's an anthropology department that's interested in the development of the mind, the history of the mind. Speech, language, and hearing is very interested in how people think and how people talk. And one of the things the university offers is the opportunity to connect with people across disciplines, not just within your discipline. We have a medical school, and one of the fun things that we get to do in our program is have joint case conference with our students in our clinic who are treating patients in conjunction with the psychiatry residents over in the med school. So it's a really exciting place to be, and I'm happy to be here. And welcome. I hope you join us.
Welcome again. My name is Daniele Podini. I am the chair of the Department of Forensic Sciences. I came here with the CCAS a few times ago, so 20 years ago in 2004. Yeah, it'll be 20 years in August. My background is law enforcement initially. I was in the Carabinieri, which in Italy, those of you that don't know, it's a military institution that does law enforcement on the Italian territory. And because I had a background in molecular biology, I was eventually brought into the crime lab, and I stayed there for several years. Then when I finished my service, I created the forensic section of a diagnostic laboratory, and then I moved after getting the PhD as well. I moved to the States here in DC. The opportunities here for people in forensics are plenty. It's probably a radius of 50 miles. There's probably the highest concentration of crime labs in the world. Some we know of, some we don't. I know some of my students came back to me after graduating. They came and said, "Oh, I wanted to work on this project." And so, where are you? Well, I can't really tell you. So I know that there's laboratories that we don't know about. So for those of you interested in forensic sciences, this is definitely the place to be.
Hello, I am Jessica Jocelyn. I've been at GW since 2002, so definitely not with the cicadas, relatively new. So I moved to DC to pursue my PhD, and I never left. That's how much I love this city. And so the opportunity to be at GW and work in the city and live in the city is like the best life, I think. So I am a speech language pathologist by trade, and so also I'm a professor in the Department of Speech Language and Hearing Science. So in this city, we have plenty of opportunities for speech language pathologists in all different settings. And I've had the opportunity to dive into early intervention, to work in the DC charter schools. And so the city is pretty great, and so that's one of the reasons why I love GW, just where it's strategically located.
Hi everybody, welcome. My name is Laura Schiavo, and I am an associate professor of museum studies, where I've been teaching since 2009. It's a little hard to follow up the secret crime labs after secret crime labs. So I've been teaching at GW for quite a while. For the last few years, for the last few months rather, I've been the deputy director of the Corcoran School of the Arts and Design, which is part of the Columbian College. So I'm happy to answer questions both about the Corcoran and Museum Studies, which sits inside the Corcoran. My background, I actually am also an alum, so I can give a plug for being a graduate student at GW. My PhD is in American Studies from GW in 2002. And after grad school, I did my PhD knowing that I wanted to work in museums, and so I was a curator for a number of years before I started to teach. But now I've been teaching for quite a while. This is a great place to do museums, in addition to being a great place to study crime. And there's also museum crime. In general, this is a wonderful city for the arts. There are lots and lots of opportunities, both inside our arts programs, working together within our arts and culture and design programs at the Corcoran, and then of course outside the walls of GW, outside the boundaries of GW. There are museums, there are associations involved with culture all over the city, and so tons and tons of opportunities for graduate students.
The dual degree program we never knew we needed. I'm gonna send an email to Dean Heap later. We'll get that rolling. Thank you all for those great introductions. As a reminder, if anyone has questions, and for those of you who just came in, Nicole over here is going to be over here with the mic, so you can feel free to head over to her. We did have a couple of questions that were submitted ahead of time. So I think we all know that, living in DC, attending a school like GW, it is, it's an investment of time and finances. Could you talk maybe a little bit about what are some of the qualities that you think that make GW unique and a worthwhile investment, personally and professionally?
I can start. Some of this I just alluded to. There are lots of opportunities when you're at GW to work within the whole art world. Museum Studies is my home, and so I can speak with most detail to that. Our students have internships at the Smithsonian and at museums across the city. You're also making connections. Making connections in grad school is even better than making connections as an undergrad, because the thing you're doing after grad school, we hope, is going into the field. And so those are connections that last. So I would say internships is one of the best examples of what it means to be in DC in grad school. But there are others. I can let other people take over.
I definitely do agree with the internships. So many students do come to DC to get internships and fellowships. And if you come to GW, you're actually already here, right? You have a head start. What I would add to it is just you're in the city, right? And compared to like some other universities within the city, like you are close to everything. You are right across the bridge to Virginia. You're right next to the Foggy Bottom metro station. There's students who take opportunities to go study at the Library of Congress. Like you can get a library card there and study. You can go to the National Mall and just have a picnic. And so that's what I really love about the city. Like you get to study in it, but you also have opportunities to live in it and network, and you gain plenty of opportunities that people fly into DC to get.
So what they said? There we go. And specifically for my field, there's a lot of internship opportunities, and one of the challenges of many job openings for forensic sciences is that laboratories, especially government labs, require some years of experience, and internships can count as years of experience. And so students, while attending the program, can intern in different labs. I had some students interning in the DC crime lab, had some issues, now it's kind of recovering. In the Secret Service, I had students at the Montgomery County Crime Lab, at the Virginia Division of Forensic Sciences, at the ATF, different agencies in the area, doing research projects, helping them with their validation, and getting some real crime lab experience, and then applying for a job. So I think that's really, you guys are here to, let's be practical, to get knowledge to then get a job. And you have that opportunity here in DC.
Yeah, no, I concur with my colleagues and would say there's a tradition at GW of having people teach what they actually do, where in our program and many other programs, the people who are doing the instruction also are working in the field. And so what you're hearing from your professors isn't, this is what I learned at graduate school, it's this is the case I was confronted with today, or this is a project I'm working on right now, are you interested in joining me? And so having people with the real world experience in an academic setting is a fantastic combination. The other thing I'd say, I was a graduate student in DC, and it's still true that when you're a graduate student, your finances can be tight. And having all the museums pretty much free is just an extraordinary resource. Your steps from the mall, if on my lunch break, I'll walk over to the Renwick and always see something interesting. And here on campus, we've got the Textile Museum, and they're all free. And so there's this extraordinary resource outside of the university as well. That's a real treasure for being here in DC.
I just want to add one more thing. In addition to internships, which are usually established between a student and wherever you're interning, there are also collaborations and partnerships that exist between the school and organizations, institutions across the city. So for example, at the Corcoran, we have a cooperative, a collaboration, a years-long collaboration now with the National Gallery of Art. So that will have lots and lots of, create lots of opportunities for students in our grad programs and in our undergraduate programs to have access to staff at the National Gallery, to National Gallery collections. And I'm going to give a little call out here to Susan Sterner, who's back there. Susan, tell me if I get this right, Susan. Susan's students in photojournalism recently did some research on photographs in the Dorothea Lange show. Dorothea Lange, 1930s photojournalist, documentary photographer. They did research on Dorothea Lange photographs and then were able to present that research in the galleries at the National Gallery of Art for the public. So that's a pretty incredible amount of access and experience.
Thank you all. And Laura, you mentioned at the beginning a little bit about the undergrad experience and how graduate school is, the opportunities to network are even more important. Could you maybe elaborate on that, and not just you, but maybe the whole panel? Talk a little bit about some of those differences between being a graduate student and being an undergrad. We posed this question to our students earlier, and I think those that are here might be interested to hear some of the differences and similarities in how you as a faculty member might respond to that.
Sure. One of the hard things about graduate school is that, at least from my perspective, is that every course you take, you want to take. It's important. I mean, as an undergrad, you have a course. Oh, I'm taking this because I'm sort of interested. I don't really need to do well in this course. What you're doing in graduate school, they're all important. They're all things you're going to be doing professionally. And so your workload, you may say, well, it's about the same number of courses. It can feel like it's heavier because each of those courses are really important for your progression forward in your career. So that's a difference. It's also, the plus side of that is it's in some ways more collegial because you're taking many of your courses with your cohort and the same students, and you're building a body of colleagues who you'll be working with for the rest of your life. And so that collegiality is very supportive, helps you, consult and work together. I think the other thing is you probably have, in some ways, closer relationships with your faculty. You're spending maybe more than one course with the same faculty member or working in their lab. And those relationships are really helpful, both here and then after you graduate.
Yeah. I could say that when I see my students, they tend to be together a lot, and they move from class to class together. They form relationships that last for many years. At the forensic science meetings, we have an alumni reception, and I see them coming back and reconnecting with each other, and it's just wonderful. So I think that's one thing that's very different. There's a practical aspect I see, at least in my program of forensic of graduate school, right? You're here because you kind of made a decision that this is the direction you want to have. And so, yes, the classes are all important and hard, but you're committed to them, right? And a lot of you are going to be paying yourself, right? You're borrowing money. So you're more invested in that sense. So the motivation is different. And obviously, you're committed to going through the program. You've obviously done well in undergrad school. So I think you shouldn't worry about it in that sense from an academic perspective. But you should try to make the best out of it. And one big difference, I think, is that your hand is not going to be held, right, by the faculty. We're here. We have a lot of students. We have research project. We're involved with the community. We all do some form of consulting or engaging with the community. So we want to bring our students along, but we don't want to carry them. We want them to be involved and help, kind of carry our agenda forward. And so that, I think, is different.
One thing that I would say is different is in undergrad, I feel like you're getting a lot of knowledge, right? And then you have to figure out, okay, how do I apply this knowledge? But in grad school, a lot of it is very practical, especially like in our program. You're getting the knowledge and also you're getting the clinical experience, right? You're taking that knowledge and applying it right away. So that's one main difference. And I wanted to kind of echo the fact that you are in these cohorts with your colleagues, your future colleagues that you're going to work with, and also your professors are your colleagues, because many of the professors, like Lauren said, are actually working in the field. Like I work in the field, and I'm also teaching, right? And so you have the opportunity to really build networks when you're in grad school versus like undergrad, yeah, I'm not gonna see these people ever again. But grad school, you are, and you're gonna need them. So make sure you're nice to them, right? That's super important. So that's really some of the big differences.
I would definitely agree with all that, and also say that you've already you've seen the difference not that long ago between high school and college. As you progress in your educational evolution, there's less time in the classroom and more time on your own, managing your time, figuring out how to get it done. And when you get to graduate school, I mean, I'm sure it varies, of course, program to program. Maybe you're taking 3 classes. So that's not tons of in-class time when you look at the span of the week, but you're probably working. You probably have some sort of internship, externship, something that you're doing outside of the classroom that's required for your program. And it's on you to make that equation work. Again, with the help of faculty, with the advice of faculty, but that is how you sort of become the professional that you're becoming by figuring out how to make that balance and to take responsibility for that work.
Any questions from our live stream audience?
So we do. Someone is asking about opportunities for international students after graduation in forensic sciences.
So that is a very specific question, and there's not a very nice answer. That's what you're expecting. Most of the jobs in forensic sciences are in government laboratories. And so they tend not to hire international individuals, non-U.S. citizens. There are some private laboratories that hire international students after they graduate. If you're an international student, after you graduate, if you find a job in the field in which you studied, you have an extension of your visa up to 3 years. And so there are laboratories that hire students, but they're generally private laboratories. And some of them end up sponsoring the students. So we have, for example, nearby, Bodhi Technology, which is the biggest crime lab, DNA crime lab in the United States, and they have hired several of our students, even before they graduate, including international students, and they've sponsored them for, after the 3 years. So that's an opportunity, but there's not that many.
Do you have any other live stream questions?
This is for speech and hearing. Could you talk more about the clinical experiences in the program and how professors support the learning experience?
So GW, I think, is really unique because in the clinic you have the opportunity to go through several different tracks. So you have a track where you're working with accent modification, or you have the pediatric track. You have a track for literacy. You have a track for acquired neural disorders, hearing health. So there's so many tracks compared to some of the other, like my graduate program. I did not have the opportunity to experience such a diversity of clinical tracks. And so every student goes through those tracks, and the tracks are associated with the coursework that you are taking. And so usually they align pretty well. And so professors and the clinical supervisors, we definitely collaborate and discuss what's going on in track, and we try to make sure we're kind of incorporating that into the classroom. So there's definitely a good blend of both, and you have such a diversity of clinical experiences that you gain from going through all the different tracks.
I saw a hand in the audience. Maybe your question was already
That's
answered.
just what we wish we knew when we started graduate school.
Oh, that's okay, thanks. All right, this is a great question for all of our panelists that I've just thought of all on my own. What is something that you wish you knew before you started graduate school?
Well, the one thing that I really, really wish I'd taken more advantage of was office hours. I mean, you'll see your professors have office hours. And what are office hours? I mean, who wants to go to office hours? That's a tremendous resource. That's your one-on-one time with faculty, and they are really there to be helpful. So I really encourage you to use office hours. The other resource that can be underutilized is the library. It's this big building all full of books. And I know that people don't use books much anymore, but the library has multiplied its resources vastly. And so if you need help writing, you need help researching, you need help with databases, you don't have to set foot in the library.
But you
have
can.
a Twitter account.
You can set foot in.
You can set foot in the library. And in fact, as a graduate student, you can use pretty much any library you want. When I was an undergrad, I hung out at the Library of Congress. I thought that was sort of a cool place to study. Don't use the main reading room. It's so beautiful. You'll just stare at the ceiling. So I mean, go there to see it, but don't try and study there. It's too beautiful. But anyway, office hours and library resources, not necessarily the books, but the resources there.
It just made me think of an analogy I was using with elementary school students. I was talking about DNA, and I said, imagine DNA, it's like an enormous encyclopedia, and where cells can, then a kid raised his hand and said, what's an encyclopedia? So hopefully you still know what that is, right? Not that young. So yeah, I kind of want to second what Lauren said. That it's be active consumers of GW, right? You're paying tuition. Just maximize the benefits that you get from it, which can all of the above. Interact with the faculty, connect with your future colleagues, try to take advantage of the connections that your faculty has. Figure out what you really like within that niche, right? Because you've decided forensic science, for example, and maybe forensic DNA, but within that, do you want to work on mitochondrial DNA? Do you want to work on crime scenes? Do you want to work on genetic genealogy, etc.? Try to figure that out and utilize all the resources that are here. There's 2 or 3 years that you're here, just maximize what you can get out of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You're paying tuition, so find ways to actually access the free resources that you have on campus. One of the things I think graduate students do, speaking like for myself, like as a former graduate student, like we tend to silo ourselves. We're like in our building, that's where we're doing our classes, clinical work, all those things. But you have opportunities to access like student life. Like here at GW, I was just looking through their Instagram. They're having like a roller skating night here downstairs. I'm like, that's really cool. Like you have the opportunity to come here and skate. You can go to, they have a GW trail. So those of you who might like hiking and you're trying to figure out how, I have no car, how am I gonna get to the different national parks in DC? Like there's connections that you can make. There's different student organizations. So I think it can be really isolating sometimes as like, you know, graduate students, you're really busy, but you really should try to form like a community and just meet other students and outside of your department and get to know other grad students and even undergrad students. They need the mentorship as well. So I would say that's really important to get involved with student life.
I can't think of anything else. But those are all really good pieces of advice.
I think the student life aspect is actually really important. I think one of the things that not a lot of folks realize about GW is that we have more grads than undergrads, which is kind of a unique balance. And so there's a lot of resources and a lot of student activities that are open and available to graduate students that you might not immediately think of. And there's definitely a lot of opportunities for building community on campus. One of our questions over here.
Hi, I've been told all throughout undergrad that talking to professors to get jobs within their labs or as graduate TAs is the best thing to do. And I figured I would ask the actual professors, what's the best way to go about getting a graduate assistant position within your department or your lab?
So when you apply to the program, you should, so if I speak specifically about our program, we have graduate teaching assistant fellowships. And we look at all our incoming students. We select the ones that, based on their CV and their academics, we think are the best fit, and then we set up interviews with them. So we kind of reach out to those students. And in our case, the GTA package has about half of the tuition comped, plus a part-time salary. So in our case, it kind of, by default, by you applying, you're going to be reviewed for that or evaluated for that. Then we interview and we select a subset, then we go in, we interview them, and then we offer them the position. But I don't know exactly for other programs. Certainly reaching out to the program director is a good thing. It's probably the first thing. There's also the Office of Graduate Fellowships.
Graduate Assistantships and Fellowships.
I'm acronym challenged. Sorry, guys. And they have opportunities. Our students specifically also are really good students, and so the chemistry department and the biology department hire our students as teaching assistants for their program. But that doesn't include, that's just a job, it doesn't include a tuition fellowship. Whereas if you're TAing for us, you actually have a tuition discount.
Yeah, I would just add to that, there are programs that don't have GTAs because we don't have undergrads for you to teach. But, so in museum studies in particular, we have had museum studies master's students who are TAs in history and sociology. So definitely reaching out, and again, I believe that what Danielle said is right, that's not with tuition benefits, but it's a job. I'm not sure, I think they vary department to department, package to package, but reaching out to the chair or the chair of the department or the program head is always acceptable.
Also, sorry, I just want to add something. There's also job opportunities on campus. Like you could work as a, even as an admin in a department. I had one student that was admin in a department for the CCAS chair, dean office, and she stayed. She was a part-time student, so she got some of the tuition comped because she was working for the department. For the Columbian College of Arts and Sciences. So there are also jobs on campus. I had students that worked for the police department. So take a look at that too.
Yeah, I'd say if you haven't filled out a FAFSA and you sort of wish you did is not a bad idea, because that could make you eligible for work-study, federal work-study positions across the campus. And so students will, go through that, become eligible for federal work-study, which is another great way to get support.
Hi, this is for museum studies specifically. So I know that your program, to my understanding from applying, you're required to do an internship as part of your program, which is amazing. However, from personal experience, I know that applying to internships specifically in the museum field can be highly competitive. I just wanted to know what percentage of your students in the program are able to actually fulfill that requirement of an internship through applications. Is there like a pathways way to make sure that your students get those internships, or is it just more of like you just have to apply, and how do you support students in getting those internships so they're able to complete your program?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer to what percentage of students successfully get an internship is 100. Except for during COVID. That was weird. We had to figure things out. But now, post-COVID, everybody gets one. It is very difficult to get a museum internship. They are very competitive, but when you are a graduate student in museum studies, maybe this is too simplistic, but that is sort of your ticket in. So that does not mean that every student can get every single internship that they want to get, but Museum Studies has a really good reputation in this city and around the country, so that really gives you a really good shot. So we have meetings throughout the semester. We give you advice about how to go about it. We don't select internships, we don't match people, because we have a variety of students. Will go to all sorts of different kinds of internships, and we have a lot of students. It would sort of be impossible to do the match. So that is your responsibility, but we help you, we guide you, we serve as references. I write many, many, many references to the Smithsonian a semester, so we're happy to support you in that way. And everybody does one, so people are successful.
Does anyone else want to touch on like the internship process for their programs?
So for our program, students have to have an externship in the fall and spring, and so it's our job to get you an externship placement. And so 100% of our students do get a placement in fall and spring. After you graduate, you have to get a clinical fellowship, which many students decide to stay in the DMV because they love DC a lot, and there's plenty of hospitals in the city, plenty of schools and private practices. So DC does provide lots of opportunities for you to be able to get a fellowship after you graduate the program as well.
There's a very formal process in psychology for internship training. It's sort of like the match to residency in medical school. And we have a range of supports for our students. And I think on our website it lists the places our students have interned, and it's an impressive list. People do really well.
In our case, it's kind of a consequence of the agency in which the internship is. So, for example, in the Secret Service, they require a background check before they bring students into the lab. So that can take a longer time, and we write references, and we connect students, and we help them get the internship. For the FBI, for example, we have nothing to do with that. It's a kind of a federal process. They have to apply externally, and eventually, once they mix it through a set of kind of firewalls, I'm not sure exactly what happens, then we get contacted and for the background check. So, but we have nothing to do with it until then. For the DC Crime Lab, for example, we had a memorandum of agreement with them. They had some issues, and so they actually lost accreditation. Now they're regaining it, they're reopening, and so we're in the process of reactivating that. We have a similar agreement with the Bodhi Technology Laboratory that I told you about. So there's students that can get internship there over the summer. We have a Bodhi Fellow program where students, when they apply for our program, are then, assuming they give consent, we share the application with Bodhi, and then they select students to offer them a fellowship within their laboratory. So students actually start an internship, a paid internship, even before they start classes in August. They start interning/working at Bodhi, and they work throughout their tenure in our program. Every fellow is then offered a full-time job. It has never happened that Bodhi didn't hire that person. So there's a kind of a distribution of approaches depending on the agency that you're interested in. But not every student gets an internship. So, you know, I have to say that. Not every student gets an internship, but every student has to complete a research project. So if they're not working outside, they'll be working within our laboratory to conduct the research, and so they still gain experience.
We have time for probably one or two more questions. So I know we have one here, and then do we have more online, Adrian? All right, great. Go ahead.
Hello. My question is for Dr. Schiavo. I am an art history MA, and since there's a significant overlap between museum studies and art history, I was wondering whether there was a fallback or a common point between the opportunities you enumerated before in your field and art history. But if this is too specific and this is not the forum for it, I understand.
I'll give you a short answer now. I can give you a longer answer at lunch. So there is not a formal relationship between art history and museum studies, but we are all part of the Corcoran, so that's all under the Corcoran umbrella. And there are lots of opportunities for art history students to do some work in museum studies. So I can tell you classes and stuff afterwards. It is a natural affinity there, and we love to work those connections.
And I think you'll find that's true for a lot of our programs. There's definitely a lot of interdisciplinary opportunities where just because you're not a student in that program, you may have some opportunities for coursework or for other research opportunities too. And then Adrian, for our online audience.
So I was asking about the day-to-day schedule for forensic sciences as far as classes.
I can hear
Day-to-day schedule.
Day-to-day schedule. So most of our classes are in the late afternoon, evening, so that students can easily find internship or jobs. We provide the students with a specific program of studies, especially the first 2 years. The first 2 semesters, so the first year, because there's a set of required students, that is required courses that are offered only once a year, so they have to take them in that order. In their second year here, depending on the specific program, they have some electives that they can choose, so they have a little more flexibility in terms of the classes that they choose. But generally, there's no class, there's only one class that starts before 4 p.m. All the other classes are from 4 to 6, 6 to 8. We have an 8 to 10, which is brutal, both for teachers and students, but it's there so that students, can better organize their time and can do other things as well.
Lauren or Jessica, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of your student schedules? Because I know that that's a very different experience than the forensic science students.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. One of the things that is special about our program is we have our own clinic, which is very busy. We see, it's not the counseling center for the university, it's actually a community clinic, and we see about 7,000 plus patient hours a year. So the first year students are not working in the clinic, they're learning how to work in the clinic, and so their schedules are much more flexible. But starting in the second year and third year, students will be working in the clinic, and it closes for winter break for a couple of weeks, it closes in the summer. But students really connect up with it most of the year. We have classes during the day. Usually there is 1 or 2 days a week where we don't have classes, depending on what year you are in the program. So students are able to find outside work if there's some flexibility in their schedule. But it's mostly daytime schedule, and usually 2 to 3 days a week of classes. And then in the second and third year, You get it, and you do it to yourself, right? We aren't asking students to work too hard, but you're at the team meeting on Friday and a new patient has arrived in the clinic who was interviewed that week. There's a discussion about the patient, who's interested in working with this patient, and you'll raise your hand, and you'll soon find yourself very busy. So we also emphasize the self-care side. We don't want you to be so overwhelmed that you lose your effectiveness as a clinician. So that's part of the story.
Yeah, so similar to psychology, we also have a clinic on campus. The speech and hearing clinic is on campus, and we serve the community. So you have patients throughout the DMV who come to the clinic. So students do take classes during the daytime, and we do have those 8 a.m. classes, which I teach. It's very hard. So yeah, we have a few 8 a.m.s. We have a few classes that may start midday or 3 p.m. So that's during the first year. So the first year you have classes during the daytime, and then you have maybe track meetings, and then you'll see your clients afterwards, after class. In your second year, your classes will actually be in the evening, because during the daytime you'll be in your externship throughout the city. You might be in the hospital, you might be in the schools, and so you'll have you have 2 classes usually your second year, and those classes would be in the evening around 6 p.m. So it's a little different.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us. I'd love to give a round of applause for our questions. Our faculty will also be available at lunch, which is happening now, and it's going to be in the Continental Ballroom, which will be the room directly to the right of this one. So thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate your great questions and attention.